I'm Javier Espinoza, Europe Executive Editor at the Capital Forum. It's a great pleasure to host in our podcast today Benoît Cœuré, a French economist, president of his country's competition authority since 2022, a very influential person in the world of business that goes beyond competition. You were a member of the executive board of the European Central Bank from 2012 to 2019, and now you're also the chair of the OECD's Competition Committee. We are in Washington today for a key antitrust conference, and I want to start by thanking you and also by trying to figure out what's the main topic of conversation today.
Well, first, thank you, Xavier, for hosting me today in Washington. It's not the best of times for an international meeting. I mean, there is so much uncertainty around. The ground is shifting under our feet. There are many threats to global trade and to the economy globally. So I guess what we want to discuss in that kind of international conferences is what brings us together, what holds us together, and that's making sure that antitrust enforcement remains stable and predictable for businesses around the world, and that we can withstand and be resilient to all these shocks coming to us.
Stability and predictability, as you say, very key. One topic that it's on everyone's minds is the topic of AI. And I know that your agency launched a study in AI chatbots earlier this year. So I wonder if you can give us an insight into why go into this specific area and what are some of the things that we might expect from this study.
So it's actually the third in a series of market studies. So maybe one day we'll have a prequel and a sequel, but for the moment we are launching season 3. It started in 2024 with a market study on generative AI, which we really wanted to focus on the upstream part of the AI value chain. That is inputs into models, data, chips, knowledge, and money, obviously, and so on. And then last year, we published a study on the energy footprint and the environmental footprint of AI. Not that much in terms of its consequences for the environment, but more in terms of its consequences for competition, with questions such as, is access to energy by AI providers going to be an additional barrier to entry? How much are they going to invest into energy? Are we going to see a world where AI providers are also providers of electricity because they will have invested in nuclear plants or in solar cells and so on and so forth. And so now we are launching the third, we are taking a third step, digging even further, and we want to address the impact of AI agents. So when you think about AI agents, what comes to mind is chatbots. And one first kind of obvious question is about the market structure for chatbots. And how it's likely to evolve. But then, if you dig deeper, there are also consequences of AI agents being used for all kinds of other purposes, including, for instance, e-commerce. And that can raise new, unaddressed competition issues. So that's what we're going to discuss in this new study that is going to come out hopefully in June or July this year.
So it's relatively advanced, and I know that you can't give us the scoop straight away, but what are some likely themes that we might see?
So we had a public consultation. We are now in the process of reading carefully everything that the industry has sent us. And then we'll decide on our priorities for this study. As I said, one first step will be the market structure for chatbots. Then you have issues related to the integration between chatbots and other digital services. Some of them are already being investigated by competition authorities, including the European Commission and some national authorities in Europe, like, chatbots and messaging. That's already somewhere in the landscape and already high on the agenda of competition authorities. And then we want to ask about the future, about how AI agents are going to impact other activities such as e-commerce, and whether they're going to create new competition challenges. It's obviously a kind of a moving, ground, because the technology is going so fast. So anything we're going to say will be a snapshot of the existing technology or the existing prospects for technology. But still, we believe it's important to take stock and start having that conversation, because it's going to come to us very fast and we want to be prepared.
Very good. And do you see signs of these being dynamic markets, these chat box messaging, which is, I guess, so predominant everywhere in our society? Or are companies just, again, leveraging their existing ecosystem in the way that they have done in other areas in the past decades?
Well, obviously, they are leveraging their ecosystems, and why shouldn't they? I mean, that's if we would be in their shoes, that's exactly what we would do. So they are doing that, but the question is, are they doing that also to enter new markets and to extend their footprints, and to not only to consolidate their ecosystems, which they've been doing repeatedly, but also to extend their ecosystems and to reach out to new activities, which would be new for us. And something that we would have to look into in terms of possible risks to competition. And so, as I said, e-commerce is one example, but there may be others. And we're expecting a lot from the public consultation to make us aware of the possible use cases of AI agents, because there might be use cases that we haven't thought about. So we want to, and this with the industry will tell us.
Very interesting. And beyond AI chatbots, but in the realm of AI, is it just history repeating? Is it the same companies doing what they have done before, but now just with AI?
Well, it is in a way history repeating, but it's history repeating something that has happened that hasn't happened very often in history, which is disruptive innovation that has a potential to change everything in the way we trade and invest and run our economies. So it's a transformational innovation, and there are examples of that. Like if you think of electricity, if you think of the container for sea trade. I mean, these are transformational innovations that had a 360-degree impact on the global economy, and AI is certainly one of them. So we can't take much. We're not going to learn a lot from recent incremental innovations, but we can learn a lot from how these big disruptive innovation in history have changed the way the economy works. Mm-hmm. And I think one first lesson, pretty obvious lesson actually, is that it's not only about the way the market for the AI market works. It's also about the way AI will change all other markets in the economy, and particularly services, education, health, training. I mean, that's all being transformed by AI as we speak.
Very interesting. And as you say, it's just a mere snapshot because it moves so fast. I wanted to talk to you specifically about Google AI overviews in this space of AI. And I know that you have looked into this. If you can give us an idea of why and what's going on with Google and the French Competition Authority.
Yeah, well, we're looking into it in a very specific way, which is related to our past decisions on publishers' rights, or to be more precise, related rights, where we have a number of decisions concerning the way Google remunerates, or actually initially did not remunerate publishers for protected content being posted on the search engine. And Google has taken commitments in front of the French authority concerning the way remuneration information is being shared with publishers on the way that content is used and on the way this content is being remunerated. And there are very detailed commitments which Google has proposed to us and which we've accepted. So we just want to check that whatever Google does with AI overviews complies with these frameworks that Google themselves have proposed to us and that we've accepted. So it's not there is no new antitrust investigation related to AI overviews, because the European Commission is doing that. So that's not, and of course we're talking to them, but it's a different angle that we're taking, which is really related to our past decisions.
Very interesting. Now that you mentioned antitrust and cases, in the last few years since the coming online, to have a phrase, of the Digital Markets Act, there's been some discussion as to whether we should go the path of antitrust, which has been criticized for being maybe too slow and catching up, and then this new set of rules that are supposed to give us already some parameters of what's illegal and what's not. What is your view as a competition authority? Are you engaging a lot in that, or are you pursuing your own cases?
So the DMA and antitrust are two sides of the same coin in a way. They are just two ways to look into digital conduct. And in many ways, the DMA is only the continuation of past antitrust decision making. It is the consolidation of past antitrust decisions into a single set of rules which have to be implemented or respected ex ante. So it is the DMA is a continuation of antitrust through other means, through other legal means, but it's very consistent. Now, in terms of the governance of the DMA has a single enforcer, and that is the European Commission. So we do have the right to, the possibility to start investigations under the DMA, and that has been confirmed under French law. And so whenever the Commission will ask us to support them, we'll be happy to do it. But our primary priority at the French Competition Authority is to initiate antitrust investigations under traditional antitrust, which is Articles 101 and 102. And primarily 102, I guess, of the EU treaty.
Yeah.
But so these are two complementary. We really see both activities as being complements and not substitutes. But of course, this requires a lot of coordination with the Commission. We always coordinate a lot with the Commission under the EU Regulation 1. So everything we do is transparent and coordinated with the Commission, but it's even more needed in the case of digital conduct, because at some point there has to be a decision on whether a given conduct should be addressed under the DMA or under 102, and then there is a second fork in the road. And if it's addressed under 102, whether it should be addressed by the member state or by the Commission, right? And these choices have to be joint with the Commission. So we coordinate even more intensely with the Commission than we used to at every step down the antitrust value chain, if I may call it that way.
Interesting. And when you think about antitrust cases, I guess obviously digital is top of mind for all regulators. Are we detecting any? And we already talked about AI, but are there any other areas that are, occupying your teams and resources?
Well, we've set three overarching priorities for the French Competition Authority. One is digital, which we've discussed. It's not only about AI, obviously. There are many other dimensions. And we had interesting cases against Apple, for instance, last year, so related to, the interplay between competition law and privacy law. So there are many new and important dimensions to it. So that's digital.
For which there was a fine, even, I remember, no? Or was...
Yes, there was a 150 million euro fine on Apple.
Yeah.
And the Italian authority has taken a broadly similar decision last year, and we are now waiting for the German decision on the same conduct by Apple. And we talk a lot among ourselves. You can be sure of that. So digital is one first priority. Second priority is the environment, or the sustainability, the environmental transition, because it's a key priority for Europe and for France, and we want to make sure that competition law doesn't stand in the way. That is, that whenever possible we can support that transition instead of slowing it down, instead of hampering it. And that's a big priority for us. And the third priority relates to affordability and, prices generally, which sometimes sounds like a kind of a boring and passé thing for competition authorities to do, but when you ask citizens, that's the most important for them. And each and every time a new crisis hits us, today that would be the oil crisis, the new oil crisis, it also acts as a reminder that affordability is the most important for our citizens, for our fellow citizens. And so it's not only important from a competition standpoint, it's important also politically, if I may, also as a way to show that the competition authority is useful and to take decisions that citizens can relate to. So it's also a big priority for us.
Really interesting.
Food, energy, yeah.
Through energy, food. In terms of being useful, actually, in fact, you've also issued a landmark decision on no-poach agreements in the IT sector. And I wonder if you can give us a flavor of what happened after that. Are there more leniency applications, more complainants?
So it is an important decision for us. It's not the first decision on a no-poach agreement. The Portuguese authority has been blazing the trail, and the Commission also had a decision. But it's the first time that we look both at broad, general no-poach agreements, which can be qualified as infractions by infringements by object. And also clauses in contracts, subcontracts between firms, vertical contracts, which we decided could not be qualified by object, and so we had to look into each and every of these clauses and look at the effects, or try to find the effects, which in that case we couldn't find. So it's also important from a methodological standpoint, and that is the way the French business community has understood that decision. There was, maybe surprisingly, there wasn't much objection to it. It was seen also as a piece of education. It was widely used and explained and communicated in HR, conferences and by heads of HR in French firms, and they found it was useful guidelines for them on what to do and what not to do, which is part of our job, honestly. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm pretty sure this will trigger more awareness. That's for sure. This we've seen already, and maybe also more questions to us and new cases.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. I want to move now to the subject of merger control.
Oh, and by the way, Javier, sorry to take a step back. And I know our time is limited, but I also wanted to mention our recent decision on ski teachers, which is really interesting because that also relates to the labor market. And it's about the way the trade association for ski teachers in France, l'École du ski français, mm-hmm. Has basically prevented teachers from working for competing ski schools while they were supposed to be independent workers. So it's a landmark decision, in our view, on limiting the freedom of independent workers in the sports area, and it's also a reminder that sports are not immune from competition law. In case the European Court of Justice hasn't been successful in passing the message, we've also passed the message to our community.
And a reminder as well that it's not just about tech that preoccupies agencies.
Exactly.
But to the point of merger control, there is a bigger picture debate, which is the role or the standing of Europe vis-a-vis the U.S. and China and other emerging global powers, and what do we do about it? Some people say that the way to do that is to let corporations become bigger and have more synergies and take more markets, and that way you can then compete in a world that some people argue it's increasingly less about rules And in this bigger debate, we have a subset, a little debate about merger guidelines, which the Commission is now updating as it has to do regularly. And I wonder, where do you see this process, and where, how does it fit with allowing these so-called European champions?
So there is a discussion to be had on why aren't we seeing bigger European firms, and I think that's a good discussion. And it is a fact that we haven't been able to create the same kind of world champions as big tech companies. I mean, there are few of them in Europe, too few, and so that's an important discussion. Now, when you ask yourself about the causes for that, really merger law and competition law is really not the first that comes to mind. It's a little bit the tail that wags the dog, and so I can understand why CEOs and particularly their GCs are obsessed with that. But in the big scheme of things, everything you've got to know is in the Draghi report, no? And when Mario Draghi had to look into that issue, his answer was, first is fragmentation of the single market. We're not leveraging our single market the way we should, but for that the answer is harmonization and convergence of national regulation in the telecom market, in the energy market, in finance, and so on. The second cause that comes to mind is excess regulation in Europe, a point that is very forcefully made by Draghi. And then competition laws come, and that's what the new merger guidelines will be about. But you see that it's part of the answer. It's not the most important part of the answer. Mm-hmm. Now, it shouldn't be an excuse for competition authorities not to look at what they've been doing and change it for the future. So we have a duty to be part of that conversation and to do what we can to help. And that's the spirit. That it's exactly in this spirit that we've engaged in discussing these new merger guidelines with the European Commission. So what I can't tell you what's in the guidelines because they're not yet out. But what I would like to see in the guidelines is first clarity about when and how companies can claim efficiency gains and present efficiency defenses when a merger is being reviewed, because today we have a lack of procedural clarity. I mean, companies don't really use that possibility, mm-hmm. even though that's possible under European law and under national law. But they're not even trying because they believe that we're not going to do it anyway. So why lose your time? Well, I suspect the lawyers would like them to do it anyway because they will get paid for it, whatever the outcome. But CEOs don't like to waste their time. Their time is precious. So you need more clarity and a little bit of maybe boring but useful procedural guarantees on, how do you present an efficiency defense at which stage in the process? What do you want to see in it? Which kind of efficiency gains are likely to be accepted by competition authorities? Is that more about innovation? Is that more about scale? Is that more about resilience? If that is about resilience, what does it even mean, resilience? Because it sounds nice, but there can be many ways to explain it. And resilience could even be bad for competition. If you have three suppliers and your three suppliers merge and you're left with one supplier, how is that good for resilience? Probably not, mm-hmm. and so on. So you need to be more precise. You need clarity about this. I very much expect that the merger guidelines will achieve that. And also we need a discussion on scaling up and which kind of scaling up is good for Europe, while other forms of scaling up can be bad for competition because that's about, reinforcing market power or even entrenching market power, and that would be bad for competition. So I'm actually very positive about it, and I'm very confident that something new and something good can come out of these new merger guidelines. And then, as national authorities, will of course that would be an important part of the discussion. I mean, this is primarily for the Commission to enforce, But of course, this will be an important reference for us.
Absolutely. And the proof will be in the pudding, as they say. And one industry that keeps pointing to the Draghi report is the telco industry that you know very well as well. And they say that the solution to their problems is to allow them to go from 4 players to 3. And that should happen urgently if Europe is to be competitive.
Look, if there is one industry where the Draghi report should not be waived, that's telecom. Because I guess all telecom CEOs would accept that their markets are national, they're not European. Because telecom regulation is national and it's not European. And the mergers that come to us, nearly all of them, they are national mergers. And I'm not saying they're bad. And I'm not even saying they're illegal. I mean, so I am kind of agnostic as to whether this can be cleared or not under merger law, and that has to be specific to the case. But what I know is that this has nothing to do with the Draghi report, because that's national consolidation, which is not what Draghi has called us to do. If we want to be faithful to the Draghi report, we should see cross-border consolidation in the telecom sector, in finance, in energy, and so on and so forth, which we're not saying. We're not saying it because regulation is national, so it's not a value proposition for the companies themselves. I mean, there might be synergies, of course, but they see fragmentation as destroying the value proposition of a merger, which makes sense. I mean, which you can understand. And governments also are not helping, because whenever the Commission comes with a proposal to unify, harmonize regulation, lots of European governments are against it. And so there is a degree of hypocrisy in that discussion, that everyone is, invoking the Draghi report, but when it comes to actual harmonization and consolidation in the European market, governments are against it. Mm-hmm. So that leaves us with a discussion on telecom, which is, there will be projects for national consolidation. Are they good or bad for competition? I don't know. They will be judged on their merits.
Very interesting. On mergers and the OECD, where you have a key role, as I understand that you're working on fresh sort of recommendations in mergers. Can you give us an idea of what they're going to be about and why are you working on that?
So we've actually done it already. Uh-huh. So the OECD merger recommendation was updated and adopted by the OECD Council in May last year. So that's done. And basically it takes stock of the previous regulation was like decades ago. The previous recommendation, was decades ago. So it takes stock of everything that we've learned, particularly from digital markets, in terms of, price is not everything, quality is important. So nothing very surprising, but the regulation, the recommendation had to be updated, and also it sets a reference for lots of countries, including outside of the OECD, lots of emerging and developing economies. And that's why these recommendations are so important. They are not binding, because there is no such thing as international law, international competition law, that doesn't exist. But all members of the OECD have committed to implement the recommendation, so that's already something. Mm-hmm. So the merger recommendation has been updated, and we are now working on 2 possible new recommendations to push the frontier even further. There would be possibly one new recommendation on market studies, something that all competition authorities do, and we want to, learn from what we've been doing and identify good practices, including for emerging and developing economies, and also discuss the interaction between market studies and antitrust enforcement and merger enforcement. That should be. It's a lot of work, but I think there will be a lot of consensus around it, because that's something that we all do. Yeah. And then one other project, which is more tentative, I would say, is to start working on a recommendation on unilateral conduct. That is monopolization, or what in Europe we call 102 enforcement, abuse of dominance, because there is no OECD recommendation yet on unilateral conduct. Uh-huh. There has been good work in the International Competition Network which we can use and find inspiration from. But it would be very useful if there could be a set of principles at OECD level on unilateral conduct.
Like such as what? What kind of principle?
Such as what's the definition of an abuse of dominance, and to start from what's dominance? How do you identify dominance on a market? The distinction between exclusionary conduct and exploitative conduct, which we have in Europe very clearly, but maybe not in other parts of the world.
Yeah.
So we are going to put some structure on that discussion.
Very good. Excellent. And I want to now, as we wrap this conversation, talk about a thing that we mentioned earlier, which is this new oil crisis and the role of competition authorities or not in the debate. In France, some are suggesting that the government can consult with your agency to put some caps on certain products for a certain period of time. And I wonder, I mean, is that feasible and should you be doing that?
Well, certainly, if the French government would like to cap oil prices, they would have to consult us. That's what French law says. I mean, it's not very difficult to have the flavor of our answer. I mean, we're not big fans of price caps. No competition authority in the world is a fan of price caps, because we very often you want to set a price cap and you see that the price will converge to the cap anyway, and then you say it's temporary, but then we know what are the criteria to lift it. Temporary devices are often very permanent,
very sticky,
exactly, and that doesn't act on any of the root causes, which have to do about insufficient supply and so on. So if the government asks us, we'll be happy to look into it and to maybe to outline some principles. But
are you having conversations right now?
Not yet. No,
okay.
Not yet. And so far, the government has focused precisely on addressing the supply of refined oil,
on avoiding this path to price caps.
Exactly. They've avoided subsidies, also because the French budget is not in a position to is not prepared for another round of subsidies to the economy. I mean, our deficit is just too high, and they want to focus on the root causes, and particularly on the lack of refining capacity, which I think is the right approach. If price caps come in the picture, we'll look into them and we'll provide an opinion. We have an experience in dealing with the oil sector. We had decisions in the downstream oil distribution and also in refineries in French overseas territories, and also recently in Corsica, where we've taken a big decision last year against Total and other companies with 187 million euros of fines related to the oil distribution and storage in Corsica. So I think we're well equipped to look into it if the government asks us, but so far they haven't.
Interesting, and I think you kind of alluded already, but what should be, if any, the role of antitrust in an oil crisis? You talk about consumers. People are really aware and acute about how this affects their daily living.
Well, antitrust cannot address any of the root causes of the crisis. I mean, we are not going to unblock the Straits of Hormuz. I mean, obviously. So what we can make sure of is that different industry players don't abuse of the crisis. Crises are fertile ground for collusion, for instance, and that's something obviously which falls within our remit. And so, if anyone has any, hint or evidence of collusion, of course they should bring it to us. We had exactly the same discussion 3 years ago when food prices went to the roof, and here we were very vigilant to look into the behavior of industry players and make sure that there wasn't collusion abusing of this crisis situation. So that's one thing. And then if there are more structural kind of roadblocks that, for instance, prevent supply from being elastic enough to adapt to these shocks, that's something we can help identify and solve. Mm-hmm. So we can bring our expertise and knowledge and support the government, and several other European countries have done so, like Germany, for instance. In Germany, the Bundeskartellamt has also a mandate to look closely into the oil sector. Mm-hmm. It's not that they're going to solve everything, but they can bring their expertise. And of course, we are also happy in France to do that.
Perfect.
If needed.
If needed. Very good. We've a targeted approach. We talked a lot about many different things, but as we end this, what's an area that you think in enforcement that will have to evolve in the next few years?
Look, so far in Europe, I think the main, the area where things are moving very fast is merger control, because we have different pieces. We've sent lots of balls in the air, like we have the discussion on the merger guidelines, efficiency gains, scaling up, etc. We have another discussion on below threshold mergers and on possible call-in powers, which we're also having in France. And so it's all moving. I think my priority would be to kind of have it land in a safe zone and having a framework that can be modernized and fit for purpose, but also stable for the future, because the business needs certainty and needs legal clarity. I think that's the priority. And then, of course, in the digital field, technology is moving so fast. We've discussed AI, that you need to take the pulse of the industry in real time if you want to be relevant. And so we'll keep doing that on AI and other technological issues, because if you don't take the pulse of the industry, you're going to come too late, and you're not going to be relevant. So these would be my two priorities.
And on that note, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.